And those two guys are graduating. They're both going to make over $80,000. One's going to work at Cisco. One's going to work at Boeing. And so when you get that level of paycheck, and you have public institutions only paying maybe $30,000 at most.
40, yeah.
That's one of the biggest things to struggle, getting the talent. The software is free. pfSense, it's a free firewall solution, very good software solution, and other open source software. But the expertise is what they're really lacking. The motive to do it.
So might a solution to that be to have the entire school corporation hire maybe one guy to do it? They can pay him more, but he covers every school instead of one specific school, so they can pay him a higher paycheck and get a higher quality worker?
That would be, but you would need a whole set of workers, because say you have 2 or 3, like the Kansas School District, Kansas City, Kansas State, all the school districts are malfunctioning, all the schools are having trouble. So each physical campus needed somebody there. You just 1, 2, even a 5-man team, there's no way they can handle that level of an attack.
Waynesburg, New York is a little tiny rural school. Used to serve kids in that area, and it's located right next to the state police post. And it would never afford an IT person.
That was one thing the article mentioned. Their budget was already very limited before that, and it was very morale.
Just to end on that one, the state of Ohio, they require one individual to be the person that sees over all their financial and educational material. So with the solution that you gave, it would be all right within part of the section of that certain governing document, but under the different section it wouldn't work. That's where the different regulations come in part. Like each state is different.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Skirt?
Hey, you guys still have the slides, or are you going to PC? Okay. Yeah, I gotta go to work.
Oh, you can just
Sorry?
oh, you can record. Okay,
No, just the time.
I think you can do that.
Oh, I'm sure you can. Anybody else need this?
Just not do it, just take it. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry.
That was the question.
Ready? Let's go.
All right, today we'd like to talk to you about the HAZAS software that is provided to everyone by FEMA. It is basically a risk analysis software that is used to kind of estimate the potential damage that could occur in any given area as it relates to buildings and the land. We were charged initially with creating a user manual about this and report it back to you. Just report to you what the functions are and everything. So, like I said, there are different models within this HAZAS software. It covers tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, and floods. And again, it's made by FEMA. So, like I previously mentioned, we were basically charged with creating a user manual. However, we met with the Tippecanoe Emergency Management Agency We selected Tippecanoe County because we felt as though we were credible to comment on that, given that most of the months out of the year we live here. Shane is from Indiana, so he's been here most of his life. So we basically met with TEMA, which is a volunteer emergency management association that's downtown, and we met with Smokey Anderson. If any of you were in the class last semester, he was the taller gentleman over at the DHS bus during safety day. I think his previous career was he was a sheriff, and now he currently works at TEMA. He's the executive director, and we also met with Martin Webb, who is more familiar with HAZUS than Smokey. So when we met with him, Smokey basically told us that or him and Martin basically told us that they don't really use HAZUS as much, which radically changed the direction of our project. And so that's when we basically turned it into an exploratory project that we've been working on. So today, the objective of today, Shane's going to next talk to you about the hazards that we face in Indiana, and then followed by Mauricio, who's going to talk to you about the specific functions of HAZUS.
So like Robert said, I am from Indiana, and one thing I can say is that on any given day you can expect just about any given weather pattern, really. You can expect snow today and thunderstorm tomorrow. So a few of the things we decided to focus more on are tornadoes, floods, and earthquakes. Like it says here, we experience more tornadoes in this county than any other county in Indiana, which through my research I found out might be more likely to be the reporting, and because we have a university here, we have a higher population here, might result in more tornadoes being reported than other counties. Indiana experiences more tornadoes than other states on average. It's mostly likely due to a flatter state, a lot of open land, so nothing to really separate these tornadoes. We experience about 21 per year. That picture off to the right is from the outbreak of tornadoes back on Palm Sunday of 1965. This tornado was touched down in Dunlap, Indiana during that storm. Another thing we experience here is floods, which is also due to flat land and can be quite damaging to crops. We have a lot of farmland, not only in Tippecanoe County, but across Indiana, and this can result in a high amount of economic loss due to floods. Back in 2009, there were some pretty big floods in southern Indiana that caused a lot of damage to crops, and that's one thing I consider as bad. Earthquakes, however, we did not find to be a very big threat here. As I've learned in Indiana, really, earthquakes aren't really an issue. Every once in a while you'll get one that kind of shakes your house and wakes you up in the morning, but aside from that, it's really not an issue. So moving on, we go on to talk a little bit more about HAZUS, and Mauricio will cover that.
Well, what is HAZUS? So it's a FEMA tool to estimate losses, and as my teammates have mentioned, it is like it can be made some estimation of losses about floods, earthquakes, and winds or hurricanes. It is a GIS system based. We will talk a little bit on the next slide. GIS based software, and it is a data integration tool to provide analysis. And this kind of data is of a wide variety of data that it is integrated in one solution like GIS. It's comprehensive data management system, and we focused in the flood information tool that I am going to talk about a little later. So what does really HAZUS do? We have the first is an estimation of social or economic impacts of some, for example, like direct physical damage or induced physical damage that comes out after one of the three natural disasters that I mentioned before. Also, out of the cases that can be studied, we can come up with some answers to the questions like what could happen if, for example, building code modification or leaks or flow regulation structures are made out of some kind of material. Also, we can get some emergency preparedness, like to develop evacuation plans or also develop emergency response plans and organize response exercises. For mitigation analysis, we can this software can assess communities at risk or evaluate mitigation measures and that kind of things. Also develop the state hazard mitigation plan and local hazard mitigation plan. So what is a GIS? GIS is a geographic information system. So it is an integration of a big range of geographical information. And we can see here that the data model of a GIS is the user is in the center, where the real world is going to be modeled in one specific model and also interact with an operational GIS. So there are 4 different levels of abstraction of a GIS, where the level 1 is just consists of real world phenomena like buildings or things like that. The level 2 is the conceptual model, where people is more people oriented. And level 3 is logical model in practical solution oriented representation of reality. And level 4 is the physical model to practical realization of reality in GIS. One of the solutions of GIS software is ArcGIS, and this is developed by ESRI. It's a company. It was first released in the version 8.0 in 1999, and it is a complete suite that includes several subsystems or models, and one of that is ArcGIS Map, that is part of ArcGIS Desktop for desktop, and this is the one that is used in HASOS. You cannot work in HASOS if you don't install this software. Something that we had to come up after when we were making the implementation. So with this software, the people is going to be able to conduct a spatial analysis, and it supports more than 70 different data formats. And the data formats is not just geographical. Also, it may include like financial or the census data that I don't know if you remember, but I was talking something a little bit of that, and for the ITR session, that because I was wondering why the census, why the information is not that updated, and I was saying like it was out of 2012, 2010, and everybody said that it's because of the census. So the model of flood model, the HASOS MH flood model is explained in a little bit in this presentation, in this slide, and it's been developed for use by floodplain managers and other users who have the responsibility of protecting citizens and property from the damaging effects of flooding. We can see that it starts with the potential earth science hazards, like riverine or coastal inundation. So it takes the flood model. It includes the riverine and the coastal inundation, and it takes into account the velocity, and then that comes up with the one direct physical damage, and later on with induced physical damage, direct physical damage, and direct economic, social losses. So The hazardous flood model has two different levels. One is the FIT, that is the flood inventory tool. And this flood inventory tool is basically all the information that can be retrieved out of the information that is already provided. This information can be modified by as time passes by. But so we have the flood surface and like coastal or digitalized stream cross sections, or we also have the ground elevation that is important for a flood, and the contour data and things like that. So all of this is input data for like registration, projection, and translation for the flood hazard analysis tool. So this comes up with the depth of flooding and creates the or is the input for the flood model, where other type of information is added. That kind of information was geographical, right? And this it starts using more like census blocks and the court of flood depth grid and source by block to get like the inventory data that I will show a little bit in a little while, and to give one loss estimation with some reports that give us an idea of a loss estimation by block or any kind of information. This software is using Crystal reports for the reports. So the flood model methodology consists of two basic analysis processes that were the ones that I showed previously. And the expertise required by user, it is increased according to these levels of analysis. And I will give the...
So here we have the earthquake model. The earthquake model is a little bit similar to the flood model and the way that it projects what might happen in a given situation. It's used by emergency planners, and it finds high-risk areas for these earthquakes and where they might happen. In addition to that, it also can look at different areas and find out what areas would sustain the highest damage. So if it hits a major city like LA or San Diego, those are high population, high buildings, how much damage could occur. And it projects how much damage could occur, depending on what type of level of earthquake it is, how high on the Richter scale it is. In addition to that, also takes geological surveys, historical earthquake catalogs, information like that, and it uses that to project what areas are at the highest risk for that. And the idea of this isn't necessarily to prevent earthquakes, but it's more to find out where they might happen and try and minimize the damage sustained by them. Similar to those, we also have the hurricane model. The hurricane model is also a part of the HAZUS modeling system, and it's also used by emergency planners. But this one is mainly used to project what areas are high risk for hurricanes and hurricane-prone areas. So a lot of areas, on the East Coast and South, Florida, and those areas. The ability with this is to be able to just go on there, pull up a random county, and you can find out how high of a risk is it to sustain a certain amount of damage from a hurricane. It's able to output probability of these different levels of damage occurring in these areas, which is nice because not only can you find out if it could get hit, but it could find out how hard it could get hit and how much damage it would take from this. It gets all this information from GIS, which we covered earlier. So it finds all these areas, which areas are low-lying, can flood easier, what areas have a high population, and information like that. And so it uses all this information to predict how many losses can the economy take and to nature as well from these hurricanes. So it can find out how many trees might get lost in a given area, and it has that information built in, so it can find forests and things like that and see how high the loss the economy and nature can take. Pass that on.
Yes. As we mentioned before, this was an exploratory investigation. So we first downloaded ArcGIS and installed it, there is online one trial version of 60 days. So we installed it, and then we installed Hasus SMH. And it uses input data from that can be downloaded. So here we can see the typical county information or map that we downloaded. And we can see here, we could be able to see the inventory that was mentioned before, the flood inventory tool. So these are the schools that are in Tippecanoe County, and they have information like how many students and other kind of information. This is just an example, right, of what information is already online. However, as Robert said, we had to make an exploratory investigation because the FEMA personnel told us that they kind of rely on other kind of solutions that are online as well. And so we can see here that there are online GIS software also provided by the government, like this national map, where you can see the hydrology of Tippecanoe, Tippecanoe County, and that is in the right, and in the left just the topography. So they rely in this kind of solutions. I'm gonna pass it on to Robert.
Okay, just to wrap up real quick, like we said, this was an exploratory investigation that, we kind of found out that HAZUS software is pretty difficult to pretty much get a hold of some accurate maps that are in the area that you want to look up. So two things that we basically came to a conclusion with for future work is first a project to basically come up with a centralized way of kind of collecting maps and kind of just identifying what's going on in any given area, specifically Tippecanoe in this case. And the other one is to come up with a centralized instruction manual on how to use the software, because that was another issue that we discovered once we went to TEMA for the interview. We basically learned that there's many sources that they have to look up to basically figure out how to use the software, and many times that those websites that they are on, they're not in order, they're not in service, they're not up and running. So those are the two things that we came to. That concludes our presentation.
Questions?
Questions?
How much do you think FEMA paid these guys to develop this? Why couldn't we have done it?
FEMA did develop it.
Well, I mean, but they probably contracted with somebody.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they did. Yes, I'm not sure.
It is really related with ArcGIS, so it is I guess that may be also involved ESRI company to develop that.
But what you're telling me is that they didn't know their customer very well.
Probably not. To be honest, it was also divided out a little bit. So depending on the model, they kind of contracted it out in different areas. And
So we're one of the most sophisticated counties in the state, and Smokey's one of the best people in their jobs. And you've given him a system that he probably thinks is a little complex. And I'm wondering what happens in Warren County, Switzerland County, Union County, where these jobs are like quarter time, and they have no IT experience, and they're given this kind of a model. How do you think they're going to do it?
they probably won't use it. I think it also depends on how high of a risk they're at in that given area. A lot of the counties in the state aren't going to find as much use of this as some places that are in more high population areas.
And they both said that they don't really use it.
Right.
They tried to use it.
They tried to.
Marty said that he was like the one to make it work, but after a while he kind of gave up, something like that. He said because it was very difficult to implement.
You write in a report that this is an ongoing issue with FEMA developing stuff by Beltway bandits that then they foster off onto the country and then walk away and leave it.
without any support.
There are some,
I have a pet peeve.
training.
That sounds like it.
There is some training still that is going on, but maybe is not, the personnel is not attending to this kind of training.
I think we hear some restlessness in the room in terms of
means it's
getting
up time to
done,
go.
so I guess we should. Are there any other alternatives? Is there any better software? Should somebody else step in and this void? Maybe
I think the best solution would be to develop a better user manual for it and make it easier to use.
So it's the complexity of the software itself.
Exactly.
The experience.
Outdated.
It is a very
Okay.
good system, it's
Okay.
just hard to use.
The second one, the second last one to the left, in front of Thomas.
Thank you very much. Hey, what you got?
I was just kind of
Okay.
if we can have it in my
Okay.
Last semester.